In this video, we are going to revise section A of biology paper 2 for external GCE. Now here we have the first question. Figure 1 shows cell division in animal cells. So cell division is just a process by which a parent cell divides to form two new daughter cells. Now here let's look at this diagram. So we have the first part here, zygote. Then here we can see that with this zygote undergoes a certain process giving us cell A. Then after another this process, then we have muscle cell. Then the other point here we have a zygote giving us cell B. Then another cell process giving us two new daughter cells. Now let's look at the first question. Question A, Roman number 1. State the characteristic of living organisms being demonstrated in figure 1. So from the characteristics that are associated with living organisms like reproduction, growth, sensitivity, locomotion, then respirations. So among these characteristics, which characteristic can qualify with the picture given on this question? So here we have growth. Now growth can be defined as the increase in number of cells, and also not only increase in number of cells, also the increase in the size of cells. Now let's look at Roman number 2. Explain what has happened to cell A. So let's look at cell A. Now for cell A, we don't know the name of this cell. We have just been given a cell A. We don't know the name, and also we don't know the function that it does. Now after underwent a certain process, now we can see that it formed muscle cell, and we know the muscles are cells or organs that are used for locomotion and lifting certain objects. So now we are trying to look at what happened to this cell which had no name and no function at this particular point, then giving us a muscle cell. So this is what we call cell specialization. So when a cell undergoes specialization, it becomes specialized in a certain function and as well as structure. So we can say cell A underwent cell specialization. Cell specialization to form a specialized muscle cell. Okay, now we can move on to question B. Explain how the zygote in figure 1 can result into the formation of an organism through the cell division. So an organism consists of the system. Then the system has the organs. Then the organs has the tissues. Then the tissue is made up of specialized cells. Now we want to explain how this zygote. So the cell division will just make sure that the cells increase in numbers. So after cell division, the same cells now will undergo what we call cell elongation by gaining water. Then after gaining water, the same cells will grow bigger in size. Then after cell elongation, we get what we call cell specialization, where the cells becomes specialized in functions by developing a certain shape. So say after cell division, the new daughter cells will undergo cell elongation to grow big in size. And lastly, will undergo cell specialization. So this is how this zygote can result into the formation of an organism. So now we have question C. Describe two life processes of living organisms and state the role of enzymes in the process. So the two most important life processes that we have in biology that describes the life. The first one is anabolism. So anabolism describes the building up where two small molecules are combined to form a large molecules. So anabolism, we are saying it's just the building up where two or more small molecules are combined to form a large molecule. An example, when a liver takes small molecules of glucose and combine them to form a glycogen. So that is our first process. Then the second process we have catabolism. Now catabolism is the opposite to anabolism. This one involves the breaking down of a large molecule to form small molecules, such as like respiration. Glucose can be broken into small molecules and produce carbon dioxide, water, as well as energy. Now for catabolism here, we are expecting to have energy as the end product. Now for anabolism, we are expecting energy to be as part of the reactant. So for anabolism to take place, energy must be there. For a liver to combine small molecules of glucose to form a large molecule of glycogen, energy must be there. So anabolism, we are saying building up. So building up from small molecules. Now even this one requires the presence of enzymes. Then catabolism, we are saying this one is breaking up. So breaking down large molecules to form simpler one. E.g. respiration. Then for anabolism, the best example is formation of glycogen from glucose by the liver. So this is how we can answer questions, but there are so many ways in which you can answer. Biology is not restricted to only one answer or maybe the exact explanation. So whenever, if you have a similar question like this, try not to answer exactly the way I am answering this. So the key is you understand. Make sure as you understand your books, as you are studying, and also as you are going through these past papers, make sure you just understand the key. Then from there you can use your own terminologies as long as you don't skip the main points behind that topic. Now let's move on to question 2. Question 2 here, we have been given a transverse section of a leaf and a leaf has so many important processes that it plays in the life of a plant. Okay, so figure 2 shows the transverse section of a leaf. So we can see that we have some layers, layer X, Y, then we also have our Q, R, then water, carbon dioxide coming out. Now the first part here, A, identify tissues X, Y, and Q. So our X, we can see that this one here, the upper part of the leaf consists of what we call epidermis layer. So this is our epidermis tissue. So we have our epidermis tissue. Now for Y, so we are looking at which tissue comes immediately after the epidermis tissue. So this is what we call a palisade. So it's a palisade tissue. Sometimes this is also known as a palisade parenchyma. Then from there we want to look at our tissue Q. So this is a vesicular tissue. Now this vesicular tissue or vesicular bundle consists of tissues like the xylem and the phloem. So that is the key. Now we have also this tissue that we've not labeled it. This is what we call a spongy tissue. Now here it consists of the cells, and mainly what happens on this spongy tissue are processes like respiration, or we can say this is where the gaseous exchange occurs. Then the part here, this tissue, this is our lower tissue. So the upper tissue is the epidermis, then the lower tissue consists of the guard cells that controls the opening and the closing of the stomata. Now, in between the upper tissue and the lower tissue, we have what we call the mesophyll tissue. So the mesophyll, the word meso means middle, then phyll means the leaf. So mesophyll, it is a tissue that is in the middle between the palisade, between the epidermis, which is the upper part, and the guard cell, which is the lower part. Now under the same mesophyll, we have the palisade, where we have the palisade cells and the spongy cells. Now from the palisade here, we can see that we have a lot of chloroplast, and we know the importance of chloroplast. It has chlorophyll, which trap the sunlight needed for photosynthesis. So this is the main region where photosynthesis occurs, and this is where we are expecting to have a higher concentration of glucose, because this is where glucose is manufactured. Then for sponge cell, we can see that here we have just little chloroplast. So photosynthesis is there, but it's not as high as it is in the palisade cell. So you need to take note of that. Now let's look at the Roman number 2. Tissues X and Y were tested for starch. Which of the two tissues would show the presence of a higher concentration of starch? Okay, so now we are expecting to have a higher concentration of starch in the region where the photosynthesis process is high, and we said the palisade is a region where the photosynthesis process is high due to the high concentration of chloroplast. So we'll say tissue Y. Under tissue X, this one would show no presence of starch. If this party has to be tested for presence of starch, there would be no starch, since there is no photosynthesis process that occurs in the epidermis layer. Since there are no chlorophyll here, we can see that we have no chloroplast here. So we expect no starch to be here. The importance of this epidermis part, it is just there to protect the inner parts, such as the palisade, the spongy. These parts are protected by the upper epidermis part, but in terms of the photosynthesis, this part is not involved in the production of starch. Okay, now give an explanation for the answer. So the reason why is expected to have and high concentration of starch is because there is a greater presence of chloroplast. So there is a higher concentration of starch in region Y due to high concentration of chloroplast. So chloroplast. So the key point is whenever you see a higher concentration of chloroplast, you need to know that the process of photosynthesis is high there, and also there would be a higher concentration of starch. Now let's move on to question B1. So name the cell labeled R in figure 2. So that is the guard cell. So we have the guard cell. So that is the guard cell. Then which feature does cell R have in common with cell X, and why that enables it to perform its function? So which feature does cell R have in common with tissues X and Y? So these have in common is like the nucleus. So they have the nucleus. They have, oh yes, the nucleus. So that is the answer for this part. Now let's move on to question 3. Figure 3 represents bones of a forelimb of a mammal. So if we look at the forelimb is talking about the bones that forms the hands. Then if we look at the hind limb consists of the bones that forms the legs. Now here, the first question A, which letters corresponds to the following features? So we have H, K, J, and K. So radius. Now the radius is and the ulna. These are the two bones that forms the forearm. Now the best way to remember this, let's alphabetize these two. So radius begins with R, then ulna begins with U. So if we look at the alphabetical order, R becomes before U. So therefore R represents the H. That is maybe one way you can use to remember the order of how these two bones are arranged. Then for ulna, this is our K. So you just look at it. R comes before U. So R represents the upper bone. Then U, which is ulna, represents the K. Then for humerus, the humerus is I. So the humerus connects the forearms with the shoulder. Now for question B, identify the type of joint found at J. So this as this point here. So the joint that is found at J, this is a hinge joint. Now if you want to specify, this is an elbow joint. Now I'll give a reason for answer. So the reason why it is known as a hinge joint, because it allows movement in one plane only. Okay, so now the other question here, name two disorders of the joint at J. So we have gout and arthritis. So these are some of the disorders that we may expect a person experiences at a certain joint. Okay, now let's move on to question 3D. Now question 3D, explain why a bone is considered to be a living tissue. So a bone is considered to be a living tissue because it is made up of cells. That is our first one. Then also it has the blood vessels, so meaning it is supplied with food and oxygen, and also it forms the waste product that must be excreted. Then also it consists of the nerve cells, and it undergoes the growth process also. So these are some of the reasons why a bone is considered to be a living tissue. So it is made up of specialized cells called osteocytes. It has also blood vessels, that supplies nutrients and remove waste product. So in general, we are saying processes that occurs in other organs like the liver, the heart, brain, are also processes that occurs in a bone. So that is the reason it is referred to as a living tissue. Now let's move on to question 4. Figure 4 shows a schematic diagram indicating the movement of water in a plant from the roots to the leaves. Okay, so we have this diagram here. We can see P, L, then M. We have guard cell where our O is coming out. So the first one, A, name the part labeled D, P. So this is what we call a root hair. So a root hair is an elongated structure found on the root hair cells, and the function is to absorb water and the mineral salts from the soil. Now identify substance O. So substance O represents this is water vapor. So we have the water vapor. As we can see, it is indicating a liquid that is coming out. So water vapor being lost by the leaves as through the process of transpiration. Now Roman number 3, what name is given to the space through which substance O occurs out of the leaf, or comes out of the leaf? So this one is stomata. So stomata is used for the entry of gases into a leaf and the exit of also gas and water from the leaf. Now let's move on to question B. So question B, state the terms used to refer to the processes responsible for the movement of water at point L. So at point L, the processes is, we have osmosis. So the water molecules move from cell to cell by the process of osmosis. Then for M, we have transpiration pool. Transpiration, it's a very important process because it helps the water to move from the roots to the leaves for photosynthesis to occur. Now question C, give 2 reasons why it is beneficial for a plant to lose water at point also through the stomata. So number 1, it helps the plant to cool. During hot seasons. Then the second one, it makes sure that mineral salts reaches the leaf. I'm sure you can have a picture. If water were to be lost through the stems, because the same water assists the movement of the mineral salts, so therefore the mineral salts won't be able to reach the leaves. So when water moves from the soil up to the leaves, it carries some of the mineral salts. So that movement of water helps for mineral salts to be transported also. So these are 2 reasons we can say, but there are so many, so you can just think of any. Now for question D, apart from the xylem vessel, name another vessel found in the stem used for transport. So apart from the xylem vessel, we have the phloem vessel. Phloem vessel is used for transporting of manufactured food from the leaves to all parts of the plant, while xylem vessel is used for transporting of mineral salts and water from the soil to the leaves for the process of photosynthesis. Now let's move on to question 5a. Define each of the following terms. So the first one, a gene. So this is a basic unit of inheritance. So if you look at the inheritance, how characteristics are inherited, or how characteristics are transferred from the parents to the offsprings, they are passed through these genes. Then for genotype, so definition for genotype, so this describes the type of genes for a certain characteristic. We can say for a certain trait. Now for question B, in a family of rats, the recessive allele small letter d causes stunted growth if it occurs in a homozygous animal. He used a genetic diagram to predict the offspring produced if two homozygous rats were mated. Now, stunted growth, it's a condition where the growth process is slow, or sometimes we can say impossible. So we have been given a condition that if these alleles were to exist in homozygous, the condition of stunted growth may occur. Now let's look at how can we make a genetic diagram, and how can we also use the genetic diagram to explain what would happen if two heterozygous rats were mated. So hetero means having different. So let's look at here. We'll say we have a male rat, then here we have a female rat. Now these two rats were heterozygous. So heterozygous, we are going to get a capital letter D and a small letter d. So the hetero means we are going to have a small letter and a capital letter. But if it would have been the homozygous means the same, either the capital letters or the small letters. So even the female one will be small letter and the capital letter, since even this one was heterozygous. So these are what we call the genotype of parental generation. Now after that, we need to separate these. So after separating these, we now form what we call the gametes. Gametes of first parental. Now we can do the crossing. So here we are expecting to have normal growth. So this is the capital letter D represents the normal growth. Then the small letter d represents the stunted growth. So here we have two capital letters. So this means that this offspring was pure health. Then let's look at for this one. So here we can see that we have the capital letter and the small letter. So this one is showing that the rat has a normal growth, but it has a carrier. Then for this one, so we have another heterozygous. Then here we can see, okay, so we can see how we are going to get now the small letters here. So we call this as the genotype of F1, first filial generation. So here we can see that there is one chance of getting a very health in terms of the growth. Then we have also two chances of getting heterozygous, which is a carrier. Then there is also this one chance. So the chance of getting a stunted rat is 1/4, since there is only one chance here. So there is that chance of 1/4. So it's 1/4. So this is how we can use a genetic diagram to describe how a certain characteristic can be brought in a living organism. So that's it for this video. Please, I'm begging for those that have not yet subscribed, please do so. Then I also want for you guys to write the comments in the comment section below. I need to see your comments. Comment like the video, and also don't forget to share with friends. So thanks for watching.